for joining us for our September 15th Collaborating on JusticeHub.tools webinar. Before we start, I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us in the morning, so if it is morning where you are, and talk a little bit about the webinar structure. So the last webinar that we held for JusticeHub.tools, we had done more of a presentation style followed by Q&A. For this discussion, though, we want to leave it open. And so we can each talk about what we've seen as best practices for creating legal and justice technology online, and to just really provide feedback to the community that's following us, whether that's the A to J community, the Tech for Justice community, legal aid. So I definitely want to hear your ideas, and we can start. And just to preface, when it comes to Tech for Justice and our process, which we're applying to JusticeHub.tools as we build it, we are using our virtual hackathon process, which is synonymous to me, at least, with collaborating online in the justice field, at least in an open source way. So as I guess I could start with my take on this, it's where do we start? As with all technology solutions, there has to be a problem that needs solving or a process that needs to be made easier or automated, or our users just need access to info. So I'm wondering, I guess this is a question for y'all then, is where do you start with this? Because since we are an open source hackathon focused group, of course we start with our problem set and we look at the community, and we are going to be pulling in people from across the country. Where do you start when you are thinking about the projects that you're going to work on or what you're building out? So, Victor, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi. So I was wondering if maybe you wanted to jump on this question.
Yeah.
I only asked since I've read a bit of your work in Just Legal, and so I kind of wanted to find out where you would start maybe on this.
Yeah. So what we do is we look at our roadmap and see what's going to have the highest impact, and then see if any of the tasks within the entire scope can then be used to take care of some other tasks, and then whittle down the list like that. But at first, it's all a brainstorm and getting info from all the project and seeing that initial list.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see who else we have. Jonathan, I believe you had you'd spoke with Jeff Oresti, the president of IBO and Tech for Justice, and you've done work with legal hackers, and you've actually done a lot of work with legal hackers. So I was wondering what your thoughts were in how legal hackers approach, or what was legal hackers' approach to the problems that they're seeing in their community, because they exist for a reason.
Hi folks, I'm actually, if you can hear me, I'm on mute. I'm in another meeting, so I can't really talk much right now. I could probably jot some notes down in the comment bar.
Of course, yeah, that would definitely work. So as Jonathan is doing that, I can move on to another point. I think that at least when it comes to virtual hackathons for Tech for Justice and JusticeHub.tools, the next step is creating a problem set, which can be incredibly rigorous, and it should be based on data, research, personal accounts, and most importantly, community feedback. You really don't know what you're trying to solve until you step into the shoes of your user, without bias, which is easier said than done because we all have existing biases. But I think that I really can't emphasize enough how important community involvement is. It's one thing to say, okay, we have a subject matter expert who can help us build this application. And it's another thing to say, well, we have subject matter experts who work one-on-one, but we also have the community members who are experiencing these problems, and we're actually receiving their input, and we're actually looking at their feedback and not thinking about what we think the best solution is. So, so that's definitely something we've encountered when we've put on our virtual hackathons, and which I think leads to this question of what problems take priority, what is the most important pain point. So, for example, when we threw our Veterans Hackathon, we only had a certain number of problems we could put on the problem set. So how do we decide what's more important? For example, military sexual trauma or dishonorable discharges that are unfair. And a lot of people would say you really can't place more importance on one or the other. So how do you really do this? So so what I'm wondering then, and I want to ask you, Ed, I know there are plenty of problems that come into your office. There are so many things that you address with your community in New Mexico. So I'm wondering how, with your technology projects that you've posted on your website, how did you prioritize what needed to happen first?
Well, a lot of times, what we're doing here is we have attorneys or paralegals or other staff who know what the task is that's being asked of them, and they're doing it in, unfortunately, very inefficient ways because we don't have the kind of systems that this technology would provide. So what we try to do first is just to try to get a good explanation of what it is that's bottlenecking and getting in our way, and then we try to listen and understand what the technology community is telling us about whether there's feasible ways to do that through software or apps or not. And sometimes our expectations and wish lists turn out to be impractical or cost prohibitive from the technology viewpoint. And we try to get these two universes to understand each other's needs better is what is often the rate determining step. I'm not sure if that was the question you're asking or not. Was that what you were asking?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I think there's so many different constraints on what we want to do, and it plays into how effective we can be, which then plays into what we're prioritizing and what we want to get done, because a lot of us are organizations of some kind. So, making sure your organization is sustainable while helping your community and keeping a good balance of that. Because if you don't, then either you're not effective or you're effective for a very short period of time. So
what we really want to do is demystify a lot of the processes that a legal aid program has to go through, both for the court system and for communicating with clients and for dealing with what funders need for documentation of how we're spending their money. We want to try to demystify all that as much as possible just to get down to simple steps that could be handled more effectively with the right software.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So this is, I'm not sure if this is going on a different tangent, but I think that another question that we have to ask ourselves when we're collaborating online and building these tools is, are we really focused on the users? So I did bring that up before, but just to clarify a little bit, there are always, operational issues, strategic partnerships that you have to pay attention to, paranoia about sue-happy users, funding constraints that hold us back from creating tech that truly helps the community we're building for, and instead creates more of the same and improved processes that only benefit established government, legal, and nonprofit organizations. So I wanted to turn that back over to you, Victor, because you've established JustLegal.com, and so I'm wondering how do you keep your focus on your users? And are your users, who do you consider your users? The lawyers who go on your site, or the users who want to find a lawyer?
Right. So in our case, we have multiple stakeholders, like like you mentioned, the people looking for a lawyer as well as the lawyers themselves. And then there's also the organizations that have larger access into a lawyer network, such as a bar association or a referral service. And so right now we're targeting those, like the bigger hub and spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way we can expand our reach through an authority that they already trust. And I think that's going to be our approach for the client side, for the person looking for the lawyer acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Those and developing partnerships that are strategic and
Okay.
Bigger.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you got cut off.
Oh, okay.
So I just saw the post from Jonathan, and I'll read it from the side. So Jonathan Askin says, our legal hackathons are all over the map based on the organizers, the nature of the issues, and the skill set of the folks in the room. Our hackathons have run the gambit from something that might be more closely described as talkathons or Simpsonians, to business-specific legal hacks like automating legal documents, to bona fide social justice hacks. We generally try to ensure that our hacks continue beyond the event, which has been very difficult, which I would totally agree. That is one of the hardest things to do, I think, with a hackathon. As a result, we have been trying to build a platform that will better preserve what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen at future legal hackers events around the world. Our frustration has been that too much great stuff happens in isolation and might be duplicated elsewhere without being able to build upon what came before. So my goal is to figure out best ways to memorialize and expose good works. That is excellent, and I think that is one of the biggest problems that this budding technology innovation in legal works has been happening for a while. So, and I think that's the point, it is the point of JusticeHub.tools, is to bring these projects together so we can build on top of each other without building our own walls around what we do. Because I think that I always hear about legal hackers and different groups and legal aid organizations who have created amazing work across the United States. And I wonder why does Texas not have that? And it's for the simple reason that people didn't know about it, or there wasn't talk of how to scale everywhere. So I think that's pretty. I think that's at the top of everyone's minds when we talk about building these tools. So let's see. And that really brings us to the online collaboration piece. So the issues that I've seen arise when collaborating online to build these tools has been differing levels of tech savviness. So having a lawyer who is really at the top of his or her game, but they may not have any technological expertise, and so being able to get past that barrier of communication is a lot of work in its own. Establishing work preferences, so people work differently and they interact differently, so they expect different ways of being treated. Prioritizing either the law or tech side of their project, so maybe worrying a little too much about what is what the technology needs are. And that's not to say you shouldn't, but to have a proper balance between the two. And those are the few of the issues I've seen. So So Joseph, can you name a few issues that you've seen while trying to do this type of work? Hello? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, this is Joseph from the Florida Justice Technology Center. Thanks for asking the question there. Able to rephrase that?
Oh, sure. So what I was really asking was when it comes to online collaboration for building these types of tools and doing your work, and maybe not even technology, but just creating processes that help your community and your clients. What are the issues that you have faced, or maybe better yet, what are tips that you can provide for other people who are trying to do work similar to yours?
It's a complicated matter. I think that often there is not as much expertise as is needed within a small group of people. So, for example, the lawyer may understand the legal aspects, and the technologist understands the technical side, but that's not enough. And getting other people involved makes it complicated. So we have found some success with trying to find people who are skilled in multiple areas, such as a technologist that understands a good bit of the legal side, or an attorney who understands the technology side pretty well, and building small teams that have a good amount of expertise to drive things forward. Does that make sense? It's hard to explain.
No, I think that definitely makes sense. Miguel wasn't able to get on, but the head of the A2J Tech Fellows has been working on on that particular problem. So basically taking law students and putting them in a setting where they're going to be working on technology. So basically creating like a hybrid lawyer or a hybrid technologist, somebody who can do both, which is
exactly. That's, if you asked about like suggestions, or that'd be my general recommendation for this area, is that build multi-skilled individuals.
so definitely a bit trickier than let's saying having a sort of structure to collaboration. But no, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to a few tips in collaborating online. And this is more pointed. I think what I'm about to say is more pointed towards those who aren't as tech savvy. So things like establishing roles and responsibilities and realistic goals in the very beginning, holding personalized video chat meetings, maintaining active communication. So I think that's playing into what we mentioned before, is that you have this whole group of people who want to do good work, but if part of them are incredibly tech savvy and can code apps, and the other part may not know how to use Skype, it becomes a bit of a problem. So yeah, definitely. I think creating this hybrid is important.
And anecdotally, many of the successful legal aid tech projects I've seen have been someone who, for example, was previously a developer and became an attorney, or someone who was an attorney and then got interested in the tech side. So,
And do you think
the handoff is just really hard if you go just completely legal to completely tech. Those things, it's just really hard to do.
Do you think there's a difference in the type of work that would come out of a lawyer who became a techie versus a techie who became a lawyer? Because I've seen people kind of question that. And so I'm just curious.
I think you can go either way. It's just a matter of does Malcolm Gladwell say it? It's the 10,000 hours. And so
Mhm.
you're trying to get to 10,000 hours with a combination of legal and tech. And
Mhm.
so, just the 10,000 hours in one area, it can be done. It's being done all the time, but I think what I've seen, many of the most effective things have been someone who has both.
Mhm. Okay.
And so, for example, for me, I'm a project manager and a developer. And so I see the project from the very beginning and what the vision is. And then I develop it. And then I realize 10% in that actually, now that I've built this preliminary tool based on what they want, here's actually a better way to do it. But if I had to hand off requirements to a developer, the developer would just be to build the whole thing. But since I'm doing both, I can get however much in and see that we need to switch directions to achieve the end goal more efficiently.
Mhm. Okay.
And so
Well,
if you imagine, like, I'm not a lawyer, but imagine if I was a lawyer and a project manager and a technologist, then I've got even more room to try to meet that end goal.
yeah. Okay. So creating hybrid lawyers and technologists.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not the simple solution some people would want,
Right.
if they're listening in on this. It's like, oh, well, I just wanted to know the tool set. Like, what is the tool set for collaborating online? But it becomes more than that no matter what, honestly. I'm not tech savvy. Well, I wouldn't say I'm not tech savvy. I do more, I started off with project management and not in the technology sense. And since I've started my role 2 years ago, I've become very tech savvy. I'm also not a lawyer, so I've also become very legal savvy. So it's interesting. Like, as you go forward, it's like no matter what, you become a part of this work. Well, you would hope you would. So,
Oh, yeah.
So other than what we've brought up so far, I'm wondering if anyone else has a question or a topic that they would want to bring up in this sort of space, before I talk a little bit about JusticeHub.tools.
Y'all are using Airtable, right? For like tracking and planning, or what's the current?
Yes.
I really like the way they structure the problems, and then each of the, like a sort of problem framework where you have just something standardized that everyone can adopt to, and then fill in from there.
Yeah. So when it comes to the tools, I think I guess just for those who aren't using a lot of these tools, Tech for Justice and JusticeHub.tools uses Slack for chatting, GitHub for sharing code, Google Hangouts, although we've been having a bit of a problem with Google Hangouts, but we do use it. Google Docs for real-time work, and project management software like Airtable and Trello. So each of these have a little bit of a learning curve, but it's good to have each of your team members be on the same page, as opposed to a series of 50 emails. So so are there any particular tools that any of you use that that you think we should know about, or that maybe just came out and are could help with our projects?
I think it's really project dependent.
That's true. That's a very open question.
Yeah.
So
I can list a handful. So, for example, we use Basecamp for project management. We also use Asana for projects that need more collaboration. We use Lucidchart for flow charting. Now we are using DocAssemble if you've heard of that. It's a document assembly open source software.
Mhm.
We also use Typeform, Zapier, and WebMerge to do some document assembly. Of course, A2J, LHI, Hot Docs.
Mhm.
That is just a handful, but there are many more actually.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you're overloaded really with the amount of like separate pieces of tech?
No, I not personally, but I know if I didn't have the experience, I would be. So it's just a thing that comes with time, and then it's kind of like a person that knows multiple instruments. They can play the different instruments at the right time when it's needed. So, but yeah, if
Mhm.
for a newer project manager or a lawyer who doesn't have as much technology experience, I would find all of this very overwhelming.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is Ed. I think that gets into what we see a lot of it on the lawyer side of the equation, is that either people have expectations that are so unrealistic that if technology is going to address it, it will cost $1 million more than we have, or else they have expectations that aren't ambitious enough because they just don't understand everything that's out there.
Yeah.
So it seems like a main theme in all of this is really demystifying how we work, what we work on, and how we can approach just collaborating with each other. So I know we're coming to the end of our time, and I just wanted to go into a little bit about Justice Hub. So our goal with JusticeHub.tools is to really build a home for the legal, justice, legal aid experts, tech experts, and really anyone who cares, so they can have a central location to find help, projects, and share their work. We think that there is a lot of good things going on. There are a lot of projects throughout the United States, but unfortunately, they're all siloed. I wouldn't say they're all, but a lot of them are siloed out. So if there's a project in Florida that's going on and could be replicated in, let's say, Texas or California or Alaska, and could be done for like a in an open source way, we firmly believe that would benefit the legal aid community and their clients. So really, we think it's time to break down these silos and build better tech, but we know we have a long road ahead of us. So yeah, and so thank you for joining. Next week, we'll be sending out surveys on how Justice Hub is working right now and what you would like to see, because really this is your tool. We're building this for you